Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside the show while it's live, and a link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by A Plain Truth, Zoe, Numinum, and Arwin. How are you all doing?
Good afternoon.
Hong Kong. Good to have you, Plain Truth.
Yeah. Anyways, maybe we should move on from this subject now. But you know, I'd like to talk to you about it more in Skype or something, Arwin. And I don't, you know.
I don't think so.
But you don't have to be angry because I'm not even disagreeing with you. I'm just.
No, you're just being very annoying. Sorry.
Right. So in your mind, this questioning your beliefs is annoying.
No. This is personal. I find it very annoying that you have to be skeptical about everything. And just
why
don't you go look for it?
Why shouldn't I be skeptical about everything?
You should.
I'm skeptical about everything, and if you're right, I will admit it happily if you can actually show proof.
Yeah, but I'm not here to prove to you that I'm right. I know I'm right.
Okay.
Yeah, but you have to turn around, Arwin. You have to pretend that if you were the skeptic and somebody was saying the same thing, you know, you have to just turn around. So what would you like to hear if you were the skeptic?
I pick up a couple of articles, but I know that even by mentioning the sources that I have used, that he doesn't find it reliable outright. That's the first thing he said. So, yeah, he's not going to find anything reliable.
I think just Numi, just looking at natural news, okay, just jump on there and just follow what you see there and just let that be your own research if you really want to look into it, because
exactly.
I think that you've handled yourself pretty well staying calm, and obviously it's very personal to Arwin, and that's okay. But what I would suggest is just take something like natural news and then, you know, spend a little bit of time there. And if you think, I'm not going to do this anymore, then don't do it. But I think you'll see some stuff that's pretty convincing.
All right.
I've got every reason to be skeptical as well, Numi. So I you know, listening to this conversation, I don't think you're right or wrong, but being skeptical about your approach seems like the right approach to me.
Definitely, I'm disagreeing with that. The thing is that if one is not willing to look into it, but just remains skeptical, but then you can't really use that skepticism for anything useful.
I don't know why you're assuming I'm not willing to look into it.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that you were not willing to look into it.
Okay, it seemed like
it was more after what Nathan said, but
I think it has more to do with the general attitude.
My general attitude is one of skepticism.
Yeah.
That's my general attitude in general.
Well, I'd suggest why don't you just look into it before you pretty much suggest that you're dismissing it.
We need to move on now because this is no longer a productive conversation. So, Alan B., any pictures of the Milky Way yet?
Yes, got a picture for you.
Excellent. So his dog's going nuts.
Sorry I'm late. I had a bit of a disaster with a baked potato, cheese and a pair of shorts.
No problem. Let's see what you got, Alan.
Okay, I'll show you the picture one.
I'm going to have to hang up. People are here.
No worries. No worries, Zoe.
Okay.
You sort your dogs out.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, by the way, Alan, I got a new supply of horny goatweed.
Oh, nice. How much was it this time, Arwen?
Oh, again, 50% discount.
How much? How many euros?
30.
Wow.
What's a euro with US dollars? What's that look like?
Hey, Ali. How you doing?
176.
Yes,
Hello.
Ali.
Yeah.
Hello.
So,
30.
Nami, there's a picture. Tell me
How
it's
you doing?
wrong.
Okay, I can't see it.
Look in the side chat, baby.
Who's willing to present it? Somebody click on Alan's face. Someone bring that up. Hey, I think we could hear you, Ali.
Alan, that's
You didn't
I
take
absolutely do not believe that that is your photography.
Can you present it, Arwen? Can you stick it up on screen?
because these colors are added by are digitally added, but you don't actually see these colors. Like this red, this is like Hubble style where they color code it by frequency after the fact.
Idiot. Or maybe it's a long exposure.
No, you didn't take this photo.
Well, it hasn't claimed to. Did you take this picture, Alan?
Yes.
I'm on my phone. I can't see it.
I've just put it up on screen. If you can click on Arwen, you'll be able to see it.
Oh, Arwen. Okay, I see it now. Okay.
This is Alan's picture. Alan's Milky Way, it says. There you go. It says it in the title. Why is there to doubt?
Well, obviously, that I took it, the colours, no doubt. Nami will run it through his forgery tools that he uses online and proves to be incredibly wrong again.
On the
He
contrary,
didn't know what chromatic aberration was.
The original question, hold on, sorry, hold on, let's just bring it on track. So the original question was, what is your scientific evidence that galaxies are real? And I got Nami to qualify what he meant by galaxies. And now this is what we've got. So do you feel this in any way scientifically validates the current mainstream description of galaxies?
You asking me?
Yeah, it's your picture.
Yes,
You're presenting
yes,
this as evidence, right?
Yes.
How so?
Well, you can see the Milky Way, the Andromeda Galaxy. You can see all sorts of in there.
And I'm sorry, this was taken from the surface of Earth with a camera?
Yes.
Okay.
No, those colors that aren't present in any photo that you could take from the surface of Earth, because when they get those those red hues, those are added digitally by organizations like NASA to represent invisible frequencies, like in the X-ray.
No, mate, before you go on and embarrass yourself, there's millions of pictures on Google like that. Are they all added by NASA? Nice.
Yeah. So, Alan, speak the truth here. Did you take this with your phone? Really?
Yes.
How strong was the lens?
600 mil.
It doesn't really matter. What does it prove?
I'm just asking.
What does it prove?
600 mil on a D 3300. It's a crop sensor, so that gives it about 800 mil in focal length.
Okay, so galaxies have this giant mass at the centre with things rotating around them. How does this in any way prove that, Alan?
That's as close as I could get. Unless you want to GoFund me to get a bit closer, Nathan.
No, getting closer or otherwise. No. Let's not worry about how close we are. Just what we've got. Let's pretend.
I brought my best evidence.
I don't mind pretending that we've gone 100 miles closer by going up, and we get it slightly sharper, right? But we'll just assume, for the sake of this argument, this is good. This is excellent, wonderful. This is what you take of. If you point your camera to the sky, that's what you get. I'll accept that on face value. How does it in any way prove that we have galaxies with a mass at the centre with other things rotating around them due to gravity? For example. Not limited to, but for example.
I don't see any Milky Way-like formations in this.
Hold on. This is Alan's evidence.
Well, you can obviously research the Milky Way. Have a look into it. Look at the galactic center. All that
we are
kind
looking
of
at
stuff.
it, aren't we? This is it, isn't it? Aren't we looking at it right now? This is it.
It's not the widest picture I've taken of one. But,
Okay, but even
you know,
if
it's said to contain
wider, closer, you're making these excuses. I'm willing to accept that this is a good depiction of what we get of a portion of the sky, Alan. So,
Okay.
but I keep asking, what does it prove, and how does it prove it?
Well, if you look into it, it's said to contain 4 billion stars and at least 100
Where does it
billion
say
planets.
that? I don't see that on this picture. Where does it say that? I don't see any writing.
Yeah,
Where's-
which one's the planet? Which one's the planet? Show me one.
Hold on, he said it. It's they said, or it said. Well, where does it say that on this picture?
It doesn't say it on the picture. It just says research. If you
Well,
look into
why are
it.
we looking at the picture then? I could have just asked you before you presented this what they say. I'm asking you what this picture does to prove galaxies, which is what you're presenting.
We're not going down that path, young man.
What path? This is your evidence of galaxies, right?
We're not going there.
I mean, not going there. I know we're not going there. Believe me, where you think there is, we definitely aren't going there, because there doesn't exist. And I'm asking you to qualify why you think there is actually there, out there in space, galaxies specifically. How does this prove them?
You can see them.
I can see what? I just see a load of lights.
Unbelievable.
What can I see? You tell me this is your evidence. Tell me what I'm looking at.
Which one's the planet?
What do you think you're looking at?
I don't know. This
Light.
is your picture. You tell me.
No, I'm interested. What do you actually think you're looking at?
I think I'm looking at a section of the night sky because that's what you've told me it is. Is this it? This is your evidence. Here's
Listen,
a picture
it
of the
can't
night
just
sky.
be
It
light.
proves
It has
galaxies
to
because
be-
they say that's it. Is that the best argument you can put forward for galaxies existing? They say they do. Here's a picture of them. Really? Is that as good as it gets? This is woeful.
What's the link, Numi?
Pretty much the exact photo that you've shared.
Pretty much, but isn't.
Oh, it's very close.
No, it isn't.
I suspect it's, could be where you lifted
But
it
you
from.
suspect wrong.
All right.
It isn't. But
I'm just playing with the possibilities here because it seems like
No.
I don't think you took the picture.
Well, I don't care what you think. Everything you say,
Pop it
as,
back up in
as
big,
Arwen's
Arwen.
proved
Make it big
earlier,
again.
is wrong.
Arwen, make it
Alright.
big again.
That's not what I said.
Can you make it bigger, Arwen? Can you come off the chat room and just make it big for a second?
Ooh, sounds rude.
Oh, it's gone
This is
completely.
the picture Nami.
There we go.
Oh.
Not Nummy's, the one that Alan's got. Alan's
It's
pick
hard
of
to tell the
space.
difference between the one that
I'm trying to compare the two.
Hold on.
The
Now
news
I
people
can't
are-
tell. Which one am I looking at? Am I looking at
Thanks,
Alan's or am I
Arwen.
looking at the other one? They're so close.
This is the other one. Hold on. I'll.
just the framing and everything, right? Kind of
There we go.
amazing.
Alan's
Can you see
Milky
that
Way.
now?
Just if you can leave that on screen for a second, Darwin, that's brilliant. Let's just have a little look.
Maybe put them side by side.
I can click on the other one. Just tell me.
I can do that. Hold on. Owen, just leave Alan's picture up. I beg of you. That's all
This
I
is-
need you to do.
Wait. Oh. Yeah. This is the one.
This is Alan's.
Alan.
Yeah, perfect. So Alan's. You know what I'm going to say? They are identical, pretty much.
No, they're not.
No, they're not. You're right. Or are
They're
they?
not.
No, they're
Not
not.
identical at all.
Not identical. You're right.
No, almost. It's
Almost.
slightly more blurry, the other one, or more gaseous. No.
Here's another version of that image, from another source.
There's millions of them.
Yeah, well, it's amazing that they're all just framed so similarly. And
Well, they would be framed because you're taking a picture of the horse head.
Okay,
what do
so
you
where
think you
was
do
this
with the
taken
camera?
from, Alan? This was taken from Leeds, was it?
No, it's taken from Derbyshire on the moors in a famous black spot where there's no lights.
On the
so
moors.
you just happen.
It's incredibly difficult to take pictures of stars in the city. It's too much
See,
light.
thank you,
Well, I'm
Alan.
glad that you've actually given us a real photo so that we can examine it properly over, maybe even after the show. We can try
You're
to.
welcome. There's millions of pictures like that. Your
Well, you've
immediate
got-
thought was, though, that I didn't do it.
Yeah,
Well,
I
There's millions of them.
still
No,
with that thought. I still don't think you did it.
there's millions of them.
Yeah, but can you hear me? Anybody?
So can you, you know, Ranty just shows his PC and the list of files on the camera as he took the shots, file number DCS 0092, DCS 0093, etc. Can you show us that maybe with the metadata to show it's yours?
Why do you need that?
Why do
would
we need that?
I don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't know why you'd need that. It's just the people who accuse Ranty
So
of...
you're just asking for something.
Yeah, if you like the answer.
You don't even know what it means.
If you don't mind me answering, why would they want it? I don't know. That was my first answer. However, people from the Globe side of the argument often accuse people like Ranty and Anthony of fraud and claim that they aren't where they say they are, they haven't taken the pictures on the day they take them, and they say it's very useful to have things like the metadata in order to verify that it is actually their photo. That's why they say they want it.
It's easy.
Me, I take things on face value and then ask people what the hell it proves and get silence. But other people, not me, I ask for metadata. So I'm just playing devil's advocate here and saying on their behalf, can we see the metadata?
Master, yes.
You're talking over me again, just as I got to the question. So can we see the metadata, please,
I'd be willing to send it to you.
Can we just see it on screen? It's very easy to share screens.
I'd be willing to send it to you.
He has to edit it first.
Yeah.
You would see the date change.
Sure.
No offence, here, Alan, but didn't you lie before about being in the war or stuff like that? Yeah.
No, I made that up.
We're being trolled.
Yeah, but you lied, all right. So I mean, your credibility, your credibility is not really.
Ali, the joke was, I didn't fight in 2 world wars. I admit.
No, that was the lie.
No, that was a lie, my friend. That was a lie, right?
It's like Rumpus saying he went to space and Negator X saying they went to space. See, Negator X and Rumpus have both said on air that they went to space in front of a live audience. Just another lie. They also afterwards claimed it was just a joke.
Well, that was a joke. It wasn't very funny, but...
Yeah, but can you understand why we're being a bit suspicious of you there?
Well,
and then again, not showing the metadata, which is really easy to show, is it's just like
well, Ali, the reason I'm not showing it,
you dug yourself a hole.
Not really. I said
no. I think you have.
No, I haven't, because I'm willing to send you the master.
I don't want the master.
No, me neither.
It's taken just as long as it would have for you to pull it up. For you to obfuscate right now. You're just
that's the point.
Totally
exactly
BS.
Right, plain truth. We don't really care. I don't really want to see it. I was just interesting to see whether you were willing to show it, because others often ask to see it. I don't care if you show it.
There you go, then.
Jolly good. But if it were me, and I'd have been asked, I'd have just stuck it up on screen, because it'd been easy. From my camera, on my computer, click, 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 there it is. But if you're prepared to send it to somebody who asks, rather than just sticking it up on this live show after having presented it, then that's fine too.
So could I say something to Nummy? Nummy, you still there?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to avoid this skepticism. You can be over skeptic, whereas the point that you just don't end up believing anything at all, and it's quite a. And I've noticed that, and I have to. The reason I came on was to stick up for Arwen. People are being over skeptical, and the thing is, it's coming from seeing it from Arwen's point of view. Anything that he does say, he gets negated straight away, and it doesn't, it doesn't help.
You obviously didn't listen to what I was saying then, because I didn't say he was wrong. I just said
no, I never said that. I said, but I'm going with conversations you've had on the Skype chat as well. He does seem to get a lot of prove it kind of thing, right? But I'm not saying you, but you can get into a trap that you're just over skeptic, and then you end up not believing anything whatsoever, rather than straight away debunk what Arwen says, which you kind of that you do kind of do, instead of just saying, look, and it's about communicating with people. There's no point being so adversarial.
I don't know if that's 100% true, Ali. I don't know.
That's your opinion, and I'll take it into consideration.
Well, it's also a lot of philosophers' opinion as well about skepticism. Right? You can actually come into a point is where you actually, like, you basically start off. You put your auto debunk straight on, just like what the ballers do. They do an auto, their skepticism or whatever, so you can. You can
Well,
actually.
I think the problem with the ballers is that they're not skeptical enough. Personally, I
think if you should maybe look, maybe read a few books on what like certain philosophers say about skepticism, because and this is by no means a criticism or whatever. It's just a way of trying to what do you call it? Maybe to stop you being so skeptical. And about Soundley's video as well, I posted a photograph in there. You forget about that guy. That guy won't even repeat that experiment. It's just a waste of time. It's a waste of your intellect, because you're a very, very smart guy and you have a lot to say. I think you're wasting your time with that dude. I think he's only done it once. He won't do it again. He's even said he won't do it again. You know what I mean? So I think it's time to walk away already. That's in every flat earther's head anyway. Like, we don't take that as evidence, and if ballers want to use it, let them use it, because it's not evidence. It's one photograph, and that is not a repeatable thing. If he was going to prove that as a point, he would have to repeat it about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times.
But you're talking to the skeptics, Ali. You're saying we wouldn't accept it, but the mass majority of people would.
I don't really get what your point is anyways. Like, how do you know? So how much skepticism is okay? How do you define that?
Well, that's for you to find out. It's when you don't believe anything at all. That's too much.
You don't figure that out by not being skeptical.
Ali, why don't you just stop? Why don't you just stop messing around and tell him to stop being a prick?
What are you talking about, Alan? They're both having a
well.
really pleasant conversation.
I wouldn't say that, but I would say that you don't learn anything by being over skeptical, because you can get into a trap. Listen, 1 sec. You can get into a trap, right, where you just automatically go into skepticism. My thing is, I believe everything anybody says to me. And if it's going to affect me in such a way, I will go and research, but I will not automatically say, you're talking rubbish, prove it, and all this kind of stuff.
I don't think
that's healthy. That's fine if you agree, but it's not healthy. And it's not healthy for someone that's going to do their research. And plus, it's not very healthy to being, well, whatever, over skeptical. That was the only reason. It was just that I came on, was to stick up for Alvin, because people give him too much of a hard time. And that's, you're not being skeptical. You're being over skeptical.
I just trust my senses.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't trust Armin's senses.
You go back and look. If you go back, if you like, analyze what's happening in your brain when someone tells you something. Think how you react to that inside your brain, and ask yourself, am I being over skeptical? It's the only way you'll find out. I can't say anything. I'm just seeing how I see it, and it's like every time. It's like it's come to us. It's what's classed as being over. It's like you don't believe anything, and that's where you don't want to go, because you will never.
That becomes a soliptic, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think I'm falling into that territory. So if that's your opinion, that's fine. But I don't think that that's where I'm at, and I don't think the way you're characterizing my approach is accurate.
You're bordering it, to be honest.
All right. That's your opinion.
And that's my analysis.
I think that you're not skeptical enough. So who knows? I guess hopefully we'll figure it out in the end.
No, that's correct, because I'm open-minded and I'm willing to entertain things until I see the convincing evidence that contrasts something to the point that I can no longer be open-minded to it.
Yeah, I'm open-minded as well.
No, but that doesn't seem to be your approach. You start out skeptical.
Yeah, well, being skeptical is actually being open-minded.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's dismissive.
You're talking about the difference between auto-believing and auto-hoaxing. And personally, I'm on Nummy's side. I'd rather auto-hoax everything. I think that's a better position to take. I know that most people would...
That's your personal choice.
Yeah, it's just personal choice. But, auto-believing everything based on the massive data that you might have been... Because your earlier argument was that I've seen so much of it over such a long period of time, it can't be wrong. Well, I don't take that attitude at all. But that's just the difference in, you know, I think Arwen's ace, I think Nummy's ace. You both got very different ways of doing things. But, you know.
Yeah.
No, I don't auto believe, I entertain.
I think the difference here is that I'm, you know, that you guys, I'm willing to actually respect your point of view, and you're just not, and you guys aren't willing to respect mine. But fine, so be it then. You know, you guys think I'm too skeptical, but you can't. I don't know how you're defining too, right? I think you're not skeptical enough, but you guys, the difference is that you guys won't respect my skepticism, and I'm perfectly fine with your willingness to just accept what you're told.
It's not about respect, Nummy, at all. I'm just saying how it doesn't bother me either way. It's just a fact that when I hear you interacting, especially with Arwen, right, and we could go back, and it's like I don't think I've ever heard you once agree with him. Or even accepted or taken on board or even said, "Oh, that's interesting. Let me look into that." Because that's, you understand, you're auto-skeptic. You're an auto-skeptic.
You start out dismissive.
Yeah, that's it, dismissive. Sorry, that's the word. You dismiss it straight away rather than going looking at it. And you, if you think about it, imagine now that happened to you, everything that you said, especially among people that have the same, that have the same opinion as yourself, that we're living on a flat plane. You imagine that. You imagine
experience that all the. Believe me, I'm not unaccustomed to that reaction.
But you don't get that off a flat earther, so, or not as heavy. I really honestly feel as if.
Well, that's exactly right. So it's like, I mean, I agree with Arwen much more than we disagree. I just see the debating and the skepticism as a way of, as an exercise in refining the details and furthering the research. I don't think that, you know, I think being skeptical.
There's a difference between skepticism and being dismissive. If you're skeptical, that means that you're not gonna just blindly trust me, and that's good. But if you're then going to just say, I don't believe it, a real skeptic would not take my word for it, but then, without necessarily criticizing or dismissing it, just do their own personal research to figure out if there might be some validity to it, instead of just dismissing it outright. That's the difference.
I don't know how many times I said in our earlier conversation that you could be right, but I'm skeptical of your conclusions, and I over and over again reminded you that I was not dismissing your point of view and that I fully acknowledge that you could be right. Did I not do that? If you then in the
same sentence say that you're skeptical, then you present it in a dismissive setting.
How could it possibly be construed as dismissive for me to acknowledge over and over again that you could be right? Sorry.
Well, because you're doubling the meaning. You're saying first, yeah, you could be right. There may be a possibility, but then you pretty much say, I'm skeptical, which in a generalized setting means like I don't believe you. So it's a double message.
But can I just fix that in his head, Arwen? Arwen, if you were to assert, hold on. If you were to assert the complete opposite, Arwen, which is that this idea, let's say medicine, is completely wrong, you were to be the polar opposite opinion, I would expect Nummy to have exactly the same opinion and say, well, you don't know for certain that it's wrong. In other words, he would apply the same skepticism.
Yeah, but why say that off the bat? Before you even look into what Arwen, even actually, not Arwen specifically,
assuming I haven't looked into it, and I said several times, yeah, I've looked into it.
No, but not in the last 10 months you haven't, when Arwen's mentioned something. But anyway, forgetting that another reason I came on of, I just watched a great video from Bulgaria. One of my friends actually put me on to, he's Bulgarian. And he's not the conversation went on to the flat earth, and he's either way, but he did give me a link to a great video I watched. It's in Bulgarian, but the guy actually interviews, it's had about 250,000 views, and it's, as I say, it's actually in Bulgarian, and the guy interviews this, I think he's a professor or something like that, and gave him some questions, and I actually found out that George Orwell used to have like a column in the newspaper, and in 1946 he actually wrote quite an interesting article about the flat Earth.
Really?
Really?
Yeah. I'll give you a link. I'll put a link in here. I'll just go and find it again. I'll put a link in the side chat, and I'll put a link to the video. Actually, it was quite a good video, to be quite honest with you. But I'll show you the little speech he done in or the little column he used to. It was like a weekly column he used to have, and he actually wrote about the flat Earth. And I never knew this, and it was just my friend put me onto this. So
I'd like to clear something up about these ongoing debates and skepticism. Is that I like Arwen. I don't know. Maybe Arwen doesn't like me. I don't really care. I enjoy talking to Arwen, and I don't think that I think when I'm skeptical of his ideas, that's just my way of trying to understand it and be interested. And I think we actually agree more than you're acknowledging in this conversation. That I don't, that yes, I'm skeptical of a lot of things that Arwen has said, but not everything. But the things where I have been skeptical stand out because they often end up creating, drawn out conversations and hurt feelings, and Arwen gets mad and pissed off if you don't agree with him, and then it becomes this big drama, and so then those stand out in your memory. But I have nothing. I like Arwen. I have nothing against Arwen personally.
If you don't agree with him.
Oh well, I'll apologise if I've upset you, Nomi. I'm just saying it
no,
as
I'm not at all. I'm
just
saying I'm clearing this up for you.
Yeah.
Okay. And that if you I don't think that I don't think I'm in a place to tell you whether you're too skeptical or not. Be as skeptical as you are.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Everybody's open for criticism. I'll take it just as well. And the point is, we have to kind of say as we see it. I mean, I haven't just come on here and just seen it in the last 5 minutes. This has been like this is due to my observations and my understanding, plus about reading what skepticism is. And as I say, it's a very dangerous place that you can take yourself down where you don't believe anything whatsoever.
Well,
and you go straight in, and it is.
No, I believe things that can be demonstrated with evidence. That I'm not inclined to believe things at all.
Yeah, but before you attack or before you be so hard on Arwen, ask him to prove it. Can you prove that, please? Or in fact, it's not for me to tell you to do anything, so I'm just going to shut up about it. I just came on to give my opinion, right? And that was all just to give Arwen, because I think he does get hammered quite a bit. A bit too much in my opinion. It's not a way to have conversation.
Yeah, but it's not a personal thing. We're trying to sort out facts in a very confusing world filled with a lot of disinformation. That's a difficult process, and the best way for us to approach it would be to have a mature conversation that can handle an absolute pretty much total skepticism and not have anyone need to take it personally. I mean, you can be as skeptical. I guarantee you can be as skeptical as you want about anything that I say, and I'm not going to take it personally. If you're as long as you are keeping your arguments on topic, I wouldn't be offended by any degree of skepticism that you applied to any idea that I suggested. Really, and I don't see why these things need to be looked at that way. I'm not hammering Arwen. Arwen makes a lot of very bold assertions. When I hear these bold assertions, I question them and I ask for evidence. It's just completely normal, completely healthy.
And I name sources.
Yeah, okay. Well, I can question the sources as well, and there's nothing. It doesn't have to be a person.
There it comes. Like, being skeptical doesn't mean that you then automatically say that all the sources are not reliable outright. You have to actually do some looking into it before you basically assert that automatically.
I never asserted that automatically. I acknowledged.
Yeah, you kind of did.
Really? So when I acknowledged over and over again that you
when I mentioned the sources, the first thing you did was well, I don't think they're very reliable. That's literally what you said.
Yeah,
literally what you said.
You mentioned InfoWars, yeah. Okay, sorry, I don't consider InfoWars to be a reliable source of information. Yeah, is that totally unreasonable? Do the rest of you all consider InfoWars to be like a bulletproof source of knowledge and information?
No, it's not impervious. It's not flawless, but in certain areas, it is very reliable, and others it's not so reliable.
Says you. I think it's propaganda. I mean, in fact.
No, but it's not all propaganda. It's not.
Well, I think it is. That's my view. I think InfoWars was created as a propaganda distribution node. I think it exists for that purpose. I think it was created and exists for the purpose of propagandizing the masses. That's why InfoWars exists, in my opinion. I think it was
it's
okay then.
Counter propaganda.
Okay then, Nummy, prove it.
No, I can't prove it.
Well, there you go then. So that's So
you're correct to a certain degree, but it's not. It is not authoritarian propaganda. It's actually counter propaganda.
Says
It's a counter narrative. Yeah, I looked into it. I followed them for over 20 years. So yeah, that's what they do. They bring a counter narrative. Goes against the main line.
All right.
Hey, Ali, fancy a beer?
Bit early for that, don't you think?
It's very warm over here, Arwen.
I think we can just all agree. Nummy Num is a very bad man. That's the conclusion.
Yes.
No.
Hated by ballers and flat earthers alike. Don't give it.
They're gonna get you on a cross here pretty soon, buddy. Better watch out.
And I couldn't give a shit about either one.
I'm telling you, man, they're gonna hang you up on that cross very soon.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting that a lot of these flat earthers are pretty much equally as dogmatic as a lot of ballers are that they rage at. You know, a lot of these people really can't tolerate disagreement and just go absolutely ballistic if you suggest that they're wrong about something that they're sure of.
No, that's not really true. We're used to arguing, but the thing is, not to make it too personal, you tend to disagree with everything.
I don't think that's
it's like almost like a default position at times, and that gets on people's nerves when you always have to disagree.
I don't
have to look at some subject and then some detail and then say, I don't believe this.
Now you're just lying.
No, this is what you do.
No, I mean, you're a contrarian. Come on, you don't think you're a contrarian? You don't think you can? No.
Well, you are.
Well,
no. Contrarian would say
you appear to be a contrarian.
No, contrarian would suggest that I was being contrary for contrariness' sake.
Yeah, exactly.
The truth is that I actually just disagree with a lot of things.
Yeah.
For reasons that, because I've thought about it and I have actual reasons for it. And anytime that I ever say things like that, I can bring the argument. So it's not like a contrarian would not be able to actually discuss the matter at hand and support their contrariness. I'm fully.
But your arguments aren't always that elaborate, and you even say, "Yeah, I haven't really looked that much into it," but that doesn't actually stop you from disagreeing with it out hand. So,
like what?
Like the medical stuff that we.
Yeah, the medical stuff. I said you could be right. So, see, now you're misrepresenting what I was saying, basically straw manning me and calling me a.
Oh,
which is basically that you're lying, actually.
You're muted, Nummy Num. Or somebody got muted. R1 maybe?
No, I got muted, but I'm back. Oh. I'm just saying, though, like, considering how many times I said that you could be right, to call me a contrarian about that, at a certain point, it's just really lying, misrepresenting.
But we're just saying that you appear to be a contrarian.
Well, of course, everyone here is going to seem like a contrarian to you, Unorthodox, because...
No.
No, so the rest, okay. So you don't think all flat earthers are just contrarian?
No, contrarian. Like I said, it's like you said, it's just kind of like you're contrary to everything just because.
No, I'm not. I'm really not. There's lots of occasions where I've agreed with Nathan, Ranty, Anthony, and even Arwen. There's plenty of cases on this show. So if I was truly a contrarian,
can you prove that?
Yeah, but you really have to. We have to really look for it together to find them. So
no, the problem is that Arwen, you're just too emotional, and so all the negative.
No. I'm just pushing the point right now. That's what I'm doing right now.
I mean, people can only take so much. I mean, once you, I mean, you can disagree twice, but once you disagree, the 100 time or 99 out of 100 time, it gets a little annoying.
Well, sure, it gets annoying, but I mean, it doesn't mean make it wrong.
Wow.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, sometimes there's other factors that play a role than being right or wrong.
Yeah, like that. I have to take care of your fragile feelings surrounding these topics.
Now you're just being.
That's what a good human would do, right?
So it's okay for you to lie and misrepresent my position.
I don't.
Okay,
no, I explained it. No, you're just being a dick right now. Okay?
No, you just did that.
No, I said exactly what I meant, and you're being a dick right now.
Says you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're not going to move me. Okay. Like
I'm trying to think.
I don't care. I don't care about moving you. I'm just saying what I think you are.
I don't care what you think, to be honest.
Yeah, well, you don't seem to care about what anybody thinks.
Yeah, I don't care about what anybody necessarily care about what anybody thinks. If they have a good argument, then I care about what they think. But if they're just asserting,
not really. Only if you
I don't care what they think.
I've been trying to think of something to say to this to derail this, and so let me just start talking. So I've been thinking about the fact that in our educational experience and system, we are presented with material and facts that we do not question from day one, kindergarten, or however you want to start out your educational process. We're not taught to question and research and investigate. And so part of my thought process is, how do we start doing that, or trying to influence others at a young age to be healthy in their skepticism and not just simply swallow whole cloth the education that we're given. So whether or not it's math or biology or chemistry or history, those of us who are in this forum are people who have questioned reality in whatever format, but we came at it from outside information. Something came to us that made us look at the matrix in a different way. So I guess my question is, how can we start to influence our immediate circles, even with the younger people? I know that I think, Nathan might have said something about Eleanor where he says, I'm going to let her make up her mind. But at the same time, that's a little bit naive, because Nathan is going to influence Eleanor just because that's the nature of community. But my question, I guess, is how can we start to encourage young people to be investigators in these fields?
Well, I think we have to, I think it would help to teach people to separate their emotions from their investigations into questions of fact, right? Because
but even if you're talking about a first grader, when you're talking about a first grader, the only emotional response they're going to have is when you tell them that Father Christmas or Saint Nick is not real. But when you're talking,
first graders are not, that's not an age where you're going to teach people these skills. Like, they're just too young at that point.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, the default reality is then they're just being programmed.
Well, that's just how it is when you're that age.
Right. No, I get it. I'm just trying to think of how to take it back farther, in that process and say, because you can't necessarily, you're not going to teach someone to question it whether or not 2 + 2 is real. You know what I mean? It's like, how can we know this is real?
Well, 2 + 2 isn't real. Is 2 + 2 real, or is it a representation of something real?
No, right? No. Yeah. I get the linguistic symbolism, sure, but when you're talking about showing them that you have 2 apples and Bobby gives you 2 apples, you've got 4 apples.
Well,
You're not going to.
That's a self-evident truth, right?
Hi, Nadia.
Sure,
How
sure.
you doing?
So
Sure,
it's
sure.
not,
But what happens? But yeah, but what ends up happening because
Hold
the
on,
first
hold on.
grader doesn't have
I know.
the capability to differentiate between self-evident truths and truths which are given to him that are historical or biological or philosophical. They don't have the ability to make that distinction. And then by the time they're 16 or 20, they've already been rooted so far into the confusion of what's self-evident and what's programmed. I guess I'm just trying to think out loud about, you know, how we go about it. Because I was just thinking about writing a children's book called The Earth's New Clothes or something like that, where it's like the kid that cries out, look, the Earth has no curve, but everybody else around is you know, denying the fact that the emperor's naked, and they just don't have the guts to say it. But there's a little kid that's asking the honest questions, and he's like, look, the Earth has no curve. You know, how do we start to tell them and teach them at a young age to be that way?
I think we have to recognize that our culture is a cult first and foremost, and that if you know, you have to make an executive decision as a parent whether you want to immerse your child in this learning environment, you know, for better or for worse. Maybe some parents think that they can counter the effects of the propaganda, and probably a lot of them can. I mean, I think that a lot of people are seemingly able to review these ideas at a later time when they're older. But in some cases, you know, you might want to homeschool your child and prevent them from.
But you have to actually have that option.
You do have that option. You're allowed to homeschool.
Yeah, in the United States you do, but in Europe you do not.
Well, then you
can't homeschool your kids in Europe.
You have an obligation. If you don't send your kids to school, then you get fines, and eventually you could get into real trouble.
Really?
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, but you can opt out of high school though.
Yeah, okay, but that's not where most of the indoctrination really happens.
Well, but you have to then think about then just countering the indoctrination of Christmas and Santa Claus. There's no problem, you know, like none of my children, all 5 of them, none of them, or rather, let me say it positively, we raised all of them not to believe in Santa Claus. And I remember when my oldest son was maybe 4 or 5, and we were in the grocery line, and it was Christmas, and the cashier said, little boy, what do you want Santa Claus to bring you? And my son said, St. Nicholas is dead.
I'd just like to say that you have to be careful presenting these ideas to children, because being a kid is a confusing enough time anyways. If you try and present this idea that the entire world is lying to you, you could really cause some psychological problems. So you have to be really careful about doing that. And I would say maybe a good age to start doing so would be, you know, perhaps 16. Anything younger than that, you really get into you know, hot water, I would think, as far as
I think that 12 is a pretty good age for that.
What age?
Say that again.
12.
12? Well, that seems a little young to me.
Well, I don't think you have to present.
I think that's the right age, because then that's the moment that you really start to unfold your intellectual curiosities.
I don't think it has to be presented to that the entire world is lying to you. It could be more presented that, you know, people that you could present, because most people aren't lying to you. In general, your teachers and people who are teaching you this propaganda, they believe it themselves, so they're not lying, like with things like the globe Earth, right? So
but just that realization is a big burden to kids.
Absolutely. For a child, yes.
You could teach a child to understand that other people's opinions are just their opinions.
Right. And
yeah, but that's going to make it hard for them to actually trust anyone to provide them with evidence that they can learn from. It's going to be very confusing to them.
That's going a bit. I think that's going a bit too far the other way. Again, just using the Santa Claus illustration, that was just one thing we taught them that we don't believe as a family. We don't believe this. Just like we say, our family doesn't use this word or that word. That's not the way we talk. Other people might talk that way, but we don't. I don't think that introduces confusion. I think that introduces the ability for someone to understand that there's a diverse panel of of culture out there, and a person then learns to balance and not criticize, because we don't teach our children to look down upon people who speak a certain way with their language or believe a certain thing. They were never critical of other children. They just knew that's what the Smiths believe. This is what we believe.
Right. Like
I'm not necessarily talking about Christmas.
I went to school with kids from a lot of other ethnicities, right? Like Chinese and South Asian specifically, and they don't have Santa. Like Chinese kids don't, you know. I mean, the children of recent immigrants to Canada from China do not teach their children about Santa Claus. Santa Claus is not a thing in China, right? So it's and it's very easy even as a child to understand that people come from these different traditions. And I don't know, I think there's a question about, you know, do children really even believe in Santa? Personally, I don't think, I mean, I never believed in Santa, even when my parents told me about Santa. I never for a second believed in Santa. I'm not even sure that kids generally even do.
You have to go back then even, huh?
Yeah, I know, right?
Okay, but Santa, like the whole setup of Santa, like elves and flying reindeer, it is much more distant from feeling realistic. It's much more like a fairy tale. So kids will catch on to that much faster. And like I only have to be some kids in class, and their big brother, who's a teenager, just tells them, "Ah, you're stupid. It's just a fairy tale," and they will then repeat it. They will then want to be that tough guy and tell their classmates, who are also very young, "Yeah, it's all nonsense." Well, that's how I originally found out.
I could always tell it was nonsense. I mean, this idea of flying reindeer.
It's much more easy to dispel it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's already it's containing.
I'm just saying that I don't even know that
elements.
I don't know that you're conferring some great benefit to your child from not teaching them about Santa, because it's such an obvious example anyway. It's not like they're not going to figure. It might be almost good to teach them that, in case that they didn't obviously see it at first, so that they are forced to like stumble and realize that how easily that they can be duped, right?
I mean, can you prove Santa Claus isn't real?
What?
Can you prove that Santa Claus doesn't exist?
Look up onus of proof.
I think Riley had presented some pretty good proof. Santa.
Oh yeah,
totally inconsistent with what we know about reality, and you can't prove Santa does exist. And this is what we should be teaching kids: is that it's not incumbent on them to disprove assertions. That it's incumbent on those making the assertions to prove the assertions. And I think that that's where a lot of this argument today has actually, you know, that's what a lot of it boils down to, is that a lot of people feel that, you know, things that it's incumbent on somebody to disprove an assertion that someone else made, rather than it's incumbent on the person who make.
So they say, "Here's my just so story," and when you say I don't believe a word of it, they say, "Well, how are you going to disprove my just so story?" And if you do smash the living daylights out of their just so story, they say, "Well, what's your just so story?"
Yeah, or they say you're a contrarian. Like, you know, people make assertions about chemtrails or whatever else, and then if I say, well, you know, I don't believe that, then I'm a contrarian. Then I'm bullying them. I'm targeting them.
I mean, if we didn't have just so stories, we would be nothing. There would be no society. There would be no culture. There would be no history. There would be no science. There would be so many aspects of humanity that, you know, we see today that are just completely absent. If you try to throw that notion out the window, that's not, you know, doesn't serve society, to say.
Oh, what? Do you really need that fantasy in your life? Is that part of your life?
I'm just saying, you would throw out so many parts of humanity if you did that.
It's very
storytelling is the original conveyor of information. That's how learning started. Yes, it is. That is how it worked. That's how it worked before writing.
No, it isn't.
You tell things through story. That's how knowledge was passed on.
Tasting, touching. Those are the original ways. Those are the primary means of investigation and information gathering.
Yeah, but that is like a personal perspective development. That's not how you pass on cultural knowledge. That's not how you pass on history.
Yeah, but cultural knowledge is just that, right? It's not really knowledge in many cases. So I'm just saying, unorthodox, what you're saying, that, you know, we couldn't, this idea that we can't live without just so stories is very telling of your general position and how you approach
it. Would do away with history. It would do away with science. It would do away with
not science.
You know,
science is a
so
method.
many aspects.
History, there's a good chance is all made up anyway.
Questions.
There's many flaws and holes in the history story, full stop. So yeah, if it's all just so stories as well, do away with a lot. As for science, science is a method. It would change nothing about science.
It still paints a
just
picture.
So stories.
And you're creating a narrative about how the world is viewed and how it works. So you call it a just so story. You say science and physics is a just so story. So
science is a method.
You know, I'm saying you would do away with all that. We would have no technology.
Without just so stories, that method wouldn't change, nor would the things that it has proven. Science won't change if we get rid of just so stories. The problem is just so stories. The problem is not science.
Well, the problem, from your aspect, we wouldn't have, you know, tons of devices that we have today because you don't believe in the science that made the devices capable.
That is not what he's saying. No, just so stories don't produce technology.
There's technologies in existence today that flat earthers don't believe are real, that came about through science.
What are you talking
about? Engineering.
Just so story. Science is not a just so story.
But what technology?
You guys claim it is, though.
We've got a few minutes left. I'll entertain this segue. What technologies?
Satellites.
Satellites.
GPS.
Satellites.
Dish network.
Well, that's because there's no evidence for them.
Can you present my screen? I was working on something that I was going to present to you guys. It's just an image of a triangle.
Go ahead. Is it a picture of a satellite?
No, it's just it's a picture of a triangle, and I wanted to kind of walk through this a little bit. It shouldn't take long. You know, like if you have a satellite dish, you know, we all believe that, you know, you can put a satellite on top of your house and you can get a signal. You guys believe it's from a radio antenna. You know, I looked up the angle to the horizon that you have to have at my location, and it's 25 degrees. So you could do something.
That when you have one of those satellite TV dishes, they're not even claiming that it's getting the signal directly from a orbiting satellite, but it's actually supposed to be getting it from a ground-based antenna.
A huge proportion of them do come from ground-based communications, and they disclaim this. So if you are under the impression that your dish is pointing at a satellite simply because the engineer who put it up there tells you that the angle proves it, which I've heard about 100 times, well then, more fool you. Because if you look up the actual technical spec of how they broadcast this stuff, it absolutely comes from ground-based stuff in many instances.
It still has to be pointing at the tower, right?
If you move so what? Antenna, what does that prove? If it's proving our point, isn't it, you idiot?
That's where I'm going.
Well done, unorthodox, for proving our point, which is this communication which many idiots think has to come from satellites because they've got a dish involved and it has the word satellite before it. That automatically means that satellites are real. Thank you for proving our point that it must also be pointing at the correct ground tower at the same exact angle, and it makes absolutely sod all difference to whether or not satellites exist.
If you let me get to where I'm going with this, if you're saying that it's coming from a tower, right? If you have the angle pointed at 25 degrees in 1 mile distance, you'd have to have a tower that's a half a mile tall, essentially.
Only if the Earth is curved.
No, on a flat Earth. This doesn't take into account Earth's curvature. So it'd actually have to be taller than this. But over a mile, that's not that much time. If you have an angle of 25 degrees, if you follow that trajectory upwards in 1 mile's distance, it will be at a height of half a mile, 0.466 miles, as you can see, if you can see my screen, this triangle. So, I mean, that means there would have to be antennas everywhere, and you could easily disprove the notion that this satellite dish is pointing at an antenna.
Antennas everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere.
Not where I live, they're not, Nathan.
Oh, right. Well, that's wonderful. Kentucky. Suddenly that means satellites are real, does it? Does that make satellites real? What are you talking about?
Do you know, like, the tallest building in the world is the Burj Khalifa, and it's like a half a mile tall. So in order to for these satellites to work properly, you would need towers just as tall as the Burj Khalifa, almost, in just over a mile's...
no, that's not true.
Yes, it is. Look at the triangle.
Hello, am I okay?
Hello,
to
Rude
go?
Earther.
The triangle is not the whole story, Unorthodox.
The triangle is if you move the satellite dish away from any angle that it's positioned at, you will not be receiving the signal. It is pointing at something that is receiving a signal. It is receiving a signal from that particular angle. And you can disprove the notion that's coming from a tower by looking straight ahead and seeing there's not a half mile tall tower a mile away. If there's a half mile tall tower a mile away, you could easily see it.
Yeah, he is everywhere. I live in North Wales in the UK, and there's towers everywhere. Everyone's satellite dishes point at the towers.
Well, that's not how they work in Western Kentucky.
My friend lives on the front face of a mountain, and there's a tower behind the mountain, and he could not have Sky because the tower was behind the mountain and out of line of sight. All the satellite dishes point at towers. They don't point at satellites.
Though. In Kentucky, they've got the geostationary satellites just to service Kentucky. Nothing like the UK. Totally different.
Oh, fantastic for Kentucky. Have you been up there and seen them?
It's well known. It's well known fact. You can get absolutely.
So everyone who's from Kentucky's been up there and seen them then.
Well known, just so story.
Everybody in America who's had satellite TV, usually they live in, or a lot of them live in rural places where there are no towers.
Are everywhere.
Okay, well let me just ask, hold on. Let me just ask an orthodox question. Hold on a second.
Not in rural
Hold on, let me just ask you a quick question.
America is a huge country.
Unorthodox, can I ask you a quick question? So from where I sit, I look out my window. Hold on a second. So if I look out my window, I can look across at houses. One of them's got a satellite dish, and it points directly at the house opposite. So its line of sight is at the house opposite. How does that work?
I don't think it's working, Nathan.
I'm pretty sure they've got TV on. If I look close enough, I can probably see it through the window. So hold on, Unorthodox. Hold on. So you're just saying, even though I can physically see it right now pointing at a brick wall, you're telling me that just doesn't work. That's what your explanation is for that.
I don't think that setup is proper, no. And I'd like to see what.
All right, well, I can tell you unequivocally that they will get satellite TV, and that the actual position that is sending the signal simply has an amplifier, and it bombards the local area with those signals to barrage its way through things like houses, and makes sod all difference whether or not there's a line of sight with a satellite. It doesn't make any difference. You just have to have a larger amplifier to send the signal. That's it.
Why wouldn't they just have an antenna then, Nathan? Why do they need a parabolic?
Listen,
some people do. It's called terrestrial TV. They just don't attach the same bullshit just so story to that little jape. People do just stick antennas up. Have you never seen them?
Well, that's not my point. My point is that
silence. That's not your point. Yeah, that's because it's a crap point. Because when we did have the exact same thing happening through TV aerials, no one had the just so story attached to it. The little bullshit bit that you like to just accept on face value. Back then, people accepted that it came from ground-based towers. Absolutely enormous ones on top of hills. Yeah? Now we just have massives and masses and masses of little ones. But for some reason, because we have the word satellite in front of the word dish, you're prepared to accept that that means that satellites are real. It's preposterous.
I mean, Dish Network used to have a live stream of a camera on their satellite.
Oh, really? Do you want me to link you to the proof of Godzilla? I've got some live streams of Godzilla too. It's absolutely incredible. If you didn't believe Godzilla was real, I can prove it to you. It's absolutely no issue whatsoever. And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully for sharing this debate. If you've not done so already, be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe. If you dislike the show, you know what to do. Anyway, massive thank you all to the debating panel for making this debate possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!